Thank you for joining me for my talk on first aid for severe trauma, empowering high schoolers to respond to traumatic injuries. My name is Rafael Rodzik. I am a project manager at the National Center for Disaster Medicine and Public Health, and I work for the Henry N. Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine. I have two disclaimers. I have no financial conflicts of interest to declare, and the views expressed in this presentation are solely those of me and don't reflect the official policy or position of the Henry N. Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine, the Uniformed Services University, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government. This is an overview of my presentation. I'll be talking a little bit about the objectives, the background research that went into creating the First Aid for Severe Trauma course, the content of the FAST course, the demonstrations of FAST that we've done thus far in the project, and the research that we've done so far, as well as the future directions for FAST. The objectives of this presentation are, at the end of it, for you to understand who developed First Aid for Severe Trauma, or FAST, what is FAST, what makes the FAST course unique, what is the FAST project timeline, and how can you get involved. So I'd like to start with a little bit about the background research, but to understand the background research, I'd like to talk a little bit about the National Center for Disaster Medicine and Public Health first. The National Center for Disaster Medicine and Public Health is a mouthful. We abbreviate ourselves NCDMPH. It was established under Homeland Security Presidential Directive 21 as an academic center of excellence. It was founded as a collaboration between 5 federal agencies: the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Transportation, and Department of Veterans Affairs. So we're both a federal organization and an academic center located within the Uniformed Services University for the Health Sciences. We're a bridge between agencies and academic and government spheres. We leverage scholarship to advance the education and research agenda for disaster readiness in the United States. And we translate military medicine for the lay public. The National Center does many types of research. It includes hospital and healthcare modeling, tabletop exercises, educational research, and stop the bleed and hemorrhage control research. Dr. Craig Goolsby's focus has been in the latter, stop the bleed and hemorrhage control. The 4 papers that you see clips in front of you from are recent examples of Dr. Goolsby's research that led us to this First Aid for Severe Trauma project. I'd like to start with the top one, layperson ability and willingness to use hemostatic dressings, a randomized controlled trial. In this study, 360 lay participants completed 4 arms of a randomized prospective controlled trial. They used plain gauze, which was the control group, or each of the 3 experimental groups were Z-folded gauze, S-rolled gauze, and injectable sponges. Each of the participants watched a standardized video, practiced hands-on dressing application, and were assessed applying the dressings via checklists and feedback mechanisms for pressure, timing, and packing. Participants also completed pre- and post-questionnaires regarding willingness to use hemostatic dressings. Overall, 202 of the participants, which is 56%, applied the dressings correctly, and 83 or 93% applied the injectable sponges correctly, whereas only 40% applied plain gauze, 43% Z-folded, and 48 S-rolled gauze correctly. So that's a rather big difference, 93% versus 40%-ish. Participants in all of the arms of that study had significant improvements in willingness to use hemostatic dressings, from 43% to 97%. Moving onward in the left-hand side to the brief web-based education improves lay rescuer application of a tourniquet to control life-threatening bleeding. It's a mouthful. So in this study, lay people were randomized to either receive pre-exposure education via Stop the Bleed website, or they didn't receive that education. Both of those groups received just-in-time instructions on how to apply a tourniquet. Participants in the pre-exposure group applied the tourniquet successfully 75% of the time, compared to 50% success for the group with just-in-time cards alone. In the bottom group, in the bottom snip, from the battlefield to Main Street, throughout history, battlefield medicine has led to advancement in civilian trauma care. Most recently, in Operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom, one of the most important advancements was point of injury hemorrhage control with tourniquets. So tourniquets have gradually been gaining acceptance in the civilian medical world in pre-hospital and trauma center settings. An analysis of EMS data shows an increase of pre-hospital tourniquet use from 0 to nearly 4,000 between 2008 and 2016. Stop the Bleed programs are expanding, and training has reached over 100,000 people related to tourniquet placement. Because of this broader acceptance of tourniquet use, there's greater potential to save lives from preventable hemorrhagic deaths. And finally, the paper on the right, recommended process outcome measures for Stop the Bleed education programs. Trauma is the leading cause of death for Americans aged 1 to 44. In response to this, a number of Stop the Bleed programs are being implemented to teach the lay public how to stop life-threatening bleeding and preventable deaths. At the time of the paper printing, there were limited data available to compare the effectiveness of all the Stop the Bleed programs that are out there. The authors in this paper offer direction on 12 process measures that will best allow comparisons among the programs to make informed decisions when implementing a Stop the Bleed education model. So since we've already started talking about Stop the Bleed, I thought I'd discuss it a little bit more. The National Center has actually done extensive research on hemorrhage control and Stop the Bleed, and we created our own Stop the Bleed educational website and a free app with educational tools to facilitate layperson tourniquet application. This website and app have been used or evaluated in a number of research projects the National Center has done. In addition, the National Center has offered Stop the Bleed training to students and staff at the Uniformed Services University, the United States Congress, the Department of Health and Human Services, FEMA, churches, local schools, and more. The video that we have on our website and on the app is about 5 minutes long. There's also tourniquet FAQs, as well as a brief quiz and additional resources. If you're interested, you can go to https://stopthebleed.usuhs.edu to find out more. So first aid for severe trauma, or FAST. In November of 2018, the National Center was awarded a $2.4 million grant to develop free life-saving trauma training to high school age students. This grant came from the Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate and FEMA. It's a 3-year, 3-phase grant. The principal investigator for FAST at the National Center is Dr. Craig Goolsby. Dr. Goolsby is a professor at the Uniformed Services University. He's also the chair of the Stop the Bleed Education Consortium, which is a committee of nationally recognized experts in Stop the Bleed education and training, which was established by the National Center in 2017. Dr. Goolsby served as a physician in the Air Force, is an active attending emergency medical physician, and has a master's in education. His experience, education, and research interests situate him ideally to be the PI for the FAST project. I'd also like to talk to you a little bit about our partners for the First Aid for Severe Trauma project. Our key partner on FAST is the American Red Cross. The First Aid for Severe Trauma course will ultimately be offered or hosted by the Red Cross. The National Center is also fortunate to be partnering with the HOSA Future Health Professionals Organization. HOSA provides a program of leadership development, motivation, and recognition for secondary, post-secondary, adult, and collegiate students enrolled in health science education and biomedical science programs, or who have interests in pursuing careers in health professions. The National Center has participated at the 2019 and 2020 HOSA International Leadership Conferences related to the FAST project. We also have a number of expert consultants and have enlisted the guidance of them for the FAST course. Dr. Matt Levy, listed first here, he is an associate professor of emergency medicine at Johns Hopkins University, as well as an associate professor in emergency health services at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. He's medical director of Howard County Fire and Rescue in Howard County, Maryland, and attending emergency physician at Johns Hopkins Hospital. Dr. Marion Gausha-Hill is medical director of LA County Emergency Medical Services. She's a professor of clinical emergency medicine at the David Geffen School of Medicine, UCLA. She's also clinical faculty in the departments of emergency medicine and pediatrics at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. Dr. Matthew Neal, listed here also, is assistant professor of surgery at University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. And we have several high school science and health teachers that are also helping us from around the United States some of whom are part of HOSA. And we're very grateful to all of our consultants here for helping us with the curriculum and ideas for the FAST project. So in the beginning, and I'd like to explain the phases. So phase 1 of FAST was 6 months long. We are now in the midst of phase 2, which is 18 months, and we refer to it as the heavy lifting phase. And then phase 3 will be 12 months, and we'll conclude the project in October of 2021. So in phase 1, which was the initial phase, we enlisted the help of our consultants, and we also created focus groups with teachers and high school students to get an idea of what kind of course we should make FAST into, and to look at some of the available resources from Stop the Bleed and other courses that are slightly similar to FAST, to how we can best make FAST to meet their needs. So in each of the focus groups, we presented these videos. Until Help Arrives was created by the federal government. The Stop the Bleed video you see on the right is the one that the National Center created, and we also included an American Red Cross video. These are each fairly different. So the Until Help Arrives video was completely animated and perhaps geared to a slightly younger audience. The Stop the Bleed video through the National Center is also animated, but a little bit for a little bit older audience, and the American Red Cross you can see here is a live action video. Each of these are brief and do include instruction on how to apply a tourniquet in an emergency setting. So we showed these videos to the students and we asked for their feedback on each of these videos. So we had some takeaways from the focus groups. There was general enthusiasm about a course like First Aid for Severe Trauma and the perspective of the possibility of having it in their schools. The students really encouraged us to include a certificate of completion should they take a course like this rather than receiving community service hours. Apparently a certificate or a card really was a big incentive to them, so we took that under serious consideration. In terms of the educational modality, the students talked about preferring combined online and in-person instruction so that they could do some of it on their own and get hands-on training in person. And then they also talked about, both teachers and students, how they thought this course could potentially fit well into a health or wellness class or in phys ed or in a club after school. In terms of videos, the students talked about preferring seeing live actors featuring people their age, so other high school students essentially. Teachers were a little bit concerned that real actors would be a distraction, that students may critique the acting versus learning the material that's in the video, but we have to balance, you know, each of the needs and wants here. And so in this next slide, we identified the following needs and requirements. We decided to develop a live action video featuring high school students. So there was a large element of realism. We decided, or the students decided and told us that they liked the look and content and presentation of the National Center Stop the Bleed video. They felt it was the best available material for an audience their age. And we also talked with the Red Cross about offering a certification card, since that was very important to the students that we had in these focus groups. So First Aid for Severe Trauma. These are the following topics that are included in the First Aid for Severe Trauma course. So communication is very much key. It's similar to operating room communication, circular. Let me use an example. You in the blue shirt, go get the bleeding control kit. Okay, Raphael, I'll go get the bleeding control kit. And then this person returns and says, hey, Raphael, I have the bleeding control kit. All of this is very, very direct and communicates. The sender communicates exactly what they need and want, and the receiver tells them back, okay, I heard you, this is what you want, I'm gonna go do this. We also want to teach the students situational awareness. So we want them to be aware of their surroundings and observe before entering a scene using all of their senses. We want them to be able to identify life-threatening bleeding, which is that bullet and the following bullet, how to stop life-threatening bleeding, are the key elements in a Stop the Bleed course. which First Aid for Severe Trauma does fulfill stop the bleed requirements, which is great in states like Texas and Georgia that already have that requirement. And so in identifying life-threatening bleeding, we want the students to be familiar with volume and flow. And for how to stop life-threatening bleeding, we will be teaching them via direct pressure and tourniquet how to stop that bleeding. And positioning of the injured person, we will also be reviewing that element to ensure that the students understand whether or not it's okay to position a person, and if so, how. And then on the right-hand side, I'd like to point your attention to this infographic that was developed by the Red Cross with some input from the National Center. We're very excited to have a few infographics that I believe will end up being available through the Red Cross website for FAST. But needless to say, it fits very well in this presentation. So like I said earlier, that trauma is the leading cause of death for people from age 1 to 44 in the United States, and it causes over 150,000 deaths per year here. So the FAST course, we'll be teaching it offering it in three different modalities. So instructor-led, blended, and online only. This really fulfills different student learning styles and also whether there's room in a classroom curriculum. Just below this, you'll see we expect that it will take approximately 135 minutes of class time for the instructor-led version and the blended versions of the course. So that's about 90 minutes of the didactic portion and 45 minutes of hands-on training. Due to the pandemic, we haven't been able to run through the full FAST course with as many classrooms as we anticipated. That said, we recently just trained about 250 teachers, and it took approximately this amount of time to do the didactic and hands-on training with them, so we anticipate that this is fairly accurate. I'd like to point your attention to the picture on this slide as well. So in this slide, you can see a number of low fidelity leg models on tables in a large setting. This is from one of our demonstrations that we did in Ohio, actually, through HOSA, and I'll be going over that in a couple slides. So filming the instructional videos. I never anticipated with my training in epidemiology and project management that I would end up on a film set, but I was very fortunate to participate in the filming of the instructional videos and main videos behind the scenes, not as an actress. And so I thought that it might be interesting to share some of these photos with all of you. So this is from the instructional videos that will be part of the FAST course. These were filmed in Philadelphia at a Red Cross location. You can see the Red Cross, or the actor hired by the Red Cross there in the center with Dr. Goolsby, going over where a tourniquet should be applied with respect to a wound on a mannequin. And we have all of the supplies there on the table that were available for the filming and the training. They had various tourniquets, and you can see in the upper portion of that photo the various wounds that they considered for the mannequin and how to make them look realistic, multiple bleeding kits. We really had access to a number of things. And then the right-hand photo I thought was kind of interesting. This is the behind-the-scenes photo of all of us that were sitting in the back looking at the scripts and whether it matched up to the curriculum. Closest to us is Kim, who was our instructional specialist at the National Center. She worked hard on the curriculum for FAST. And next to her is Dr. Matt Levy, one of our consultants. He was on set to help with the EMS portions and medical expertise related to the films. And then next to him is Dr. Goolsby, who's of course the PI on the project, and the other members of the Red Cross team as well. It was really an interesting few days to film these instructional videos that will be part of FAST, and it was very neat to participate in. So a little bit later, both of these were filmed pre-COVID, that we filmed the main video. And so the main video we like to refer to as the story arc video. So this is the one featuring students who are, or young actors who are about high school student age, and you can see them on the right-hand side here. There's a male and assisting a female who's applying direct pressure. And so they were assisting a construction worker in the setting of a school. And so we were on set. You can see Dr. Goolsby in the left giving direction for, how the blood should look and perhaps timing of something in the book in that woman's hands. And you can see that the moulage was done very realistically here. We wanted the actor who was injured to look like he had a life-threatening bleed, and so that the young woman in the right-hand picture was applying direct pressure until the tourniquet arrived with her friend, and then they applied the tourniquet. So all of this turned out really well, I think. We wanted to ensure that this was kind of an everyday situation. That's Dr. Goolsby's language. So you never know when, you might be installing a mirror at your house and it may fall and slice your leg open, or if you observe a car accident and may be able to come to the rescue of somebody, if your father's working in the garage and cuts himself on a saw. All of these are everyday situations, and so trainings like First Aid for Severe Trauma will really build a more resilient population who knows how to respond calmly and the best of their ability in a situation like that. So we have done a number of demonstrations of the FAST project. The earliest demonstration that we did was in June of 2019. We attended the HOSA International Leadership Conference and did some educational research with about 250 high school students that were participating in that conference. Later that year, we went to a Pennsylvania high school classroom where a teacher and her class ran through the full FAST early curriculum. And we timed it and we asked their impressions of it. And that was a very useful experience for us. Both the Red Cross and the National Center were present for that event. And then even later in 2019, we were invited by Ohio HOSA to go to an event at the Cleveland Cavaliers Fieldhouse, where they had over 600 of their students participating in an event where they rotated various medical opportunities, either to learn or train. And so we offered an abbreviated course of FAST to these 600 students that came through about 200 at a time. There were 3 waves of them. And you can see that some of these students were at each table, this happened, applying tourniquets to a low fidelity model that's essentially a thicker, sturdier pool noodle with a piece of PVC pipe in the center and a red sock to indicate, blood as if it were an amputation. We provided windlass rod tourniquets. Here is a combat application tourniquet. And we also provided a cloth, essentially a washcloth, and informed them that they can use anything from a towel to a washcloth to their sweatshirt to apply direct pressure if a tourniquet is unavailable. They had a just-in-time card there in front of them. You can see that in front of the pool noodle model. And a little bit of information on a FAST flyer if they wanted to take that with them. So that was really an exciting event. We were very proud that we pulled that off. We also did a Train the Trainer event with about 250 high school teachers via the virtual HOSA International Leadership Conference that just occurred in June and July of 2020. We're thrilled to have these 250 high school teachers kind of pre-trained in order to bridge into the full FAST course once it's released by the Red Cross, hopefully in spring of 2021. And we've had, at this point, students and teachers from all over the United States participate in our demonstrations. So we're really excited to have had these opportunities and hope to be able to continue this, whether or not the coronavirus causes us some challenges. Like the 250 high school teachers that we just trained, all of it was virtual. We did the didactic training over 2 days of the ILC. And then we did, through the month of July, waves of hands-on virtual training where we sent supplies to teachers and they sent it to the next batch and to the next. And it really worked very well. It was a lot of coordination, but we're very excited to have that cadre of teachers now. At the HOSA International Leadership Conference in 2019, we did do some educational leadership, or educational research, and you can see here our team. That's me on the left with Dr. Goolsby and other members of the National Center team who backed us up at this large event. So we had about 250 students from 39 states who were randomized into one of three groups: instructor-led, blended, online only, and the instructor-led and blended groups received hands-on training, and the online only did not. So 88% of the students in instructor-led and 94% in blended group applied the tourniquet correctly, ultimately. Nearly all of the participants passed an assessment requiring them to identify what wounds warranting a tourniquet, so 99% of the instructor-led and blended groups and 98% of the web-only group. If you're interested in reading the full paper, that's the title there: High School Students Can Stop the Bleed, a randomized controlled educational trial. It was published in the past year or so, and we're very excited to have that out there. So this is a kind of summary of that research. So you can see that 250 or so students were equally divided among the three groups, and the tourniquet application success rates among each of the groups, web-based being the lowest. The students did have a big jump in willingness to use a tourniquet in real life, from 61% to 98%. A positive attitude toward the safety and effectiveness of tourniquets, that jumped from 66% to 98%, and also confidence with using a tourniquet improved drastically. So FAST now has a quarterly newsletter that is released by the Red Cross. You can sign up on redcross.org/fast if you're interested in receiving it. Again, it's only quarterly. You won't be totally spammed. We're very excited that it reaches over 250,000 people. The next newsletter actually comes out this week, and we believe it will reach over 300,000 at this point. Apparently, a number of more people joined the newsletter outreach list at the Red Cross. But generally, this newsletter is highlighting the latest research and updates related to the FAST project. So for example, that article that came out about the 2019 research that I just spoke about, we talked about that in one of the newsletters that was released. We talked about filming, basically anything that goes into the FAST course and when it will officially be released. We do anticipate that it will be in spring of 2021. That said, the coronavirus pandemic has caused minor slowdowns and changes in everybody's life, as this conference is virtual instead of in person, but we are fairly confident that we should be able to release the course then. So next steps. The National Center will continue to be giving talks and promoting FAST at other upcoming conferences and events. In fact, I believe Dr. Goolsby has a talk at EMS World, which is next month. And I think that there will also be a virtual booth with the Red Cross, and potentially DHS and FEMA may also have a booth there as well. So you can probably find some FAST materials online virtually through their booth. We do plan to continue demos and training through the end of the project, which will be October of 2021. And we now have at the National Center a new implementation specialist, Petula, who will be pushing forward grassroots efforts to reach all of the states in the United States to hopefully have them have different school districts adopt FAST. And this is in addition to the Red Cross's regular rollout and marketing of all of their courses. So we really hope to have a robust response and enthusiasm for FAST. Like I said, course release is in spring of 2021. We're really excited that that's so soon at this point. So be aware of implementation and rollout near you. And this is another one actually of our infographics that was developed by the Red Cross. Be the difference is one of the sayings for FAST. I believe these may become available on the Red Cross FAST website. So if you're interested, you can check back there. So that website is redcross.org/fast. It's one of the ways that you can get involved. You can also speak to your kids' science and health teachers or principal at the high school about the need for this training. You can speak to your county or state to require a training like FAST for all high school students, or if there is a Stop the Bleed requirement, you could tell them about how FAST is unique and adds a few more aspects like communication in the setting of an emergency and situational awareness that's incredibly useful for everybody to be aware of. And if you're involved in or are friends with leaders in a church youth group, in scouting, in summer camps, all of those settings are great settings to offer first aid for severe trauma. First Aid for Severe Trauma is meant to be a free course. It is a course that will be offered at no cost to high school students and to the high school student educators, so teachers teaching high school students. If it's taught in a setting with some adults or not in the high school setting, there may be a small fee. The Red Cross is still working through that, but all of these settings are extremely opportune moments that FAST could be taught in. So in conclusion, FAST is the first Stop the Bleed course designed specifically for high school students. It's going to be offered in multimodal education to best fit the classroom setting, the students' learning styles, and the availability of room in the curriculum. It's built with student, medical, and educational expert inputs, and it's the first course of its kind that is educationally evidence-based. FAST will truly save lives and build a more resilient United States population, and you can absolutely be involved. So if you are looking for additional info, again, the website that you can go to is redcross.org/FAST. You're also welcome to contact me. I'm a project manager at the National Center, specifically on the First Aid for Severe Trauma project. And again, my name is Raphael Rodzik, and you see my email on the screen. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope that you have a wonderful afternoon.